Welcome back. All right, so today, looking at teams that got knocked out of the playoffs, I want to talk about Florida as we continue to just go in a random order here. So with the Florida Panthers, they're an interesting team to look at because again, we come back to they haven't won a round since 1996. That's a long time, and the fact that it's been that long has to be weighing on the franchise. And yet, they made some advancements this year, right? They finished 37-14-5. They had a very good record and they showed that they were definitely in that upper echelon of that division, finishing second overall. But Tampa Bay still knocks them out in six, showing that teams really wanted to avoid that 2-3 matchup for a reason. While Nashville played very well in the loss, that 2-3 matchup looked like a nightmare, right? And Nashville looked like an easier matchup for either Florida, Tampa, or Carolina than any of them matching up with each other. So we'll never know if Florida might have beaten Nashville if they played Nashville. We'll just never know. And what stands out still is this is a Florida team that didn't make it past the first round. Now, they did not have Aaron Ekblad for the playoffs. Does that make a difference? Absolutely. Does that mean they would have beaten Tampa Bay if they had Aaron Ekblad? That goes back into the realm of the unknown. We really don't know whether or not Florida would have won that series. And again, it's one of those things that during the summer, when they're deciding what they need to do with this roster, did they make a big change or did they make some small changes? I'm thinking there will be some changes. I am thinking there will definitely be some changes. So their special teams tell you that their power play wasn't bad. 20.53% during the regular season, and in the playoffs, 27.3%. But their penalty kill, a little bit lacking during the regular season at 79.76%, and against Tampa, 60%. So that's a big part of the reason that they're watching the playoffs now rather than being in the playoffs, is because their penalty kill simply wasn't good enough. And again, when you're against a power play with Kucherov and Stamkos and Hedman and Point and Killorn and any other various names of really good goal scorers you can come up with, yeah, it makes some sense, but for Florida to really take that next step, they have to figure that out. They have to look at matchups like that and say, you know what, we can do this. So for Florida, it's going to be interesting to see how they figure it out from here. They're pending unrestricted free agents. Alexander Wenberg, who I think played well enough that if he wants to come back and they want to figure it out, they can do that. Nikita Gusev, it'll be interesting to see if they make him an offer and if he stays. I thought Gusev had some good moments, but I also think that he's replaceable in the offseason. So if he wants a lot of money, I'd let him go. Brandon Montour fit in relatively well after the trade deadline. I think it's a pure rental, though. I don't think he sticks around either. And Chris Drieger, the most fascinating of the unrestricted free agents, because Seattle's coming in. They might be looking at Drieger. But do Drieger's numbers in the playoffs put them off? Or do they say, it's fine. It's fine. We'll just pick him up. So for Drieger, probably not going to be signed before the expansion draft. But they'll have to protect Bobrovsky. He's got a no movement clause. And then you go from there. You go from there and you figure it out. And of course, Spencer Knight's made it so at least they have another solid option, although he's young. Don't Carter Hart Spencer Knight. Pending restricted free agents, Sam Bennett, who I think showed in Florida why he was drafted as highly as he was by Calgary. He was fantastic. Anthony Duclair, who had a good season but didn't put in enough goals, I would think, to warrant a large raise or anything like that. But he played well. And I think he fit in better in Florida than he has anywhere else. I'm including Ottawa in that. I think in Florida, I think Duclair just fits. He fits their style of play. I'd be kind of surprised if they don't keep him around. And these are restricted free agents, so you can figure something out from there. But it may very well be just a deal that walks him to unrestricted free agency. Lucas Wallmark, I have no idea whether they keep him or they don't, what they do with him. Juho Lammikko. Lammikko was a useful forward for them, not a huge raise for him. Gustav Forsling had an amazing breakthrough season. Forsling was kind of sort of fantastic. And after Ekblad went down and guys had to step it up, we saw guys like Forsling and Weegar do exactly that. So Forsling has finally realized his NHL potential now in Florida, and I would expect that he gets paid a decent amount. I don't think he's going to get a huge amount of money, but he'll probably get a decent amount, probably a bridge contract. And Sam Montembeault, who was one of my favorite underrated, I thought, goaltenders a couple years ago. And now he's just kind of the number 4 guy in Florida. And yeah, restricted free agent. Probably just gets a qualifying offer and goes on that. If they qualify him. They may look at their goaltending and say, you know what, we got Knight, we got Bobrovsky. We don't know if Montembeau's going to, round out into being an NHL goaltender. We may not qualify him and just let him go to UFA and figure something else out. We'll see what they do. They're 22 and under group. So again, these are players aged 22 and under that appeared on the roster this year for the Florida Panthers. Owen Tippett had a good rookie season. Not fantastic, but not every rookie does. A2 Luostarinen, good. Again, just introduction to the NHL kind of numbers. Grigory Denisenko didn't appear in a lot of games, but he was effective when he was in the lineup. Alexei Heponiemi, as Florida brings in more and more of these young players. Heponiemi I thought was decent too. Matt Kiersted, who ended up not getting a point because he wasn't allowed. It wasn't for a lack of effort, and he was even a -4. So I felt bad for Kiersted because the overall numbers would tell you he didn't get a point. He was a -4. That he's not very good. But I thought, I thought the potential was there. So again, he's 22 and under. Give him another shot next year. And Spencer Knight, who pretty young for a goaltender. We'll see what they do with him next year. Again, don't Carter Hart him. Don't do what Philly did. Handing a young goaltender the reins can be great, but it can also be, it can be a minefield, really. 32 and over, Patrick Hornquist, whose career was rejuvenated with Florida. Hornquist just fits. Absolutely. From first game on, Hornquist just absolutely gravitated to that net, knew exactly where to go to get the dirty goals, and it worked. So Hornquist is still a really good player. I still don't understand why he was let go by Pittsburgh. I do not, for the life of me, understand why a guy who scores big goals like Hornquist tends to do, why he was available. Keith Yandel, I think, based on the healthy scratches during the playoffs, which Joel Quenneville wanted to do during the regular season. There were all these rumblings, I should say, about whether or not Quenneville was going to scratch Yandel the first game of the season just to get that Iron Man streak out of the way, and then, of course, everybody freaked out, and so he didn't do it. And then there were people saying, see, that's not true. He wouldn't healthy scratch Yandel because their blue line isn't good enough. In the playoffs, he made Keith Yandel a healthy scratch. I would not be surprised to see Yandel playing with another team next year. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Anton Stralman, decent defenseman. Not at his peak, obviously, at this stage, but still decent defenseman. And Sergei Bobrovsky, who is, he's in his 30s. He's making a lot of money for a long time to come. And we'll see how much that contract weighs him down later. Or potentially this summer if they're in the market for somebody big. Because they may very well decide they're going to go in and try to get a big name free agent. It's possible. So their top scorer during the regular season and the playoffs is the same guy. It's Huberdeau. 55 games, 20 goals, 41 assists, 61 points during the regular season. 6 games during the playoffs with 2 goals and 8 assists, 10 points. Fantastic player. Yes, I still say he's probably the most underrated player on the Panthers, one of the most underrated players in the league. Top goaltender, Drieger, 14, 6, and 3 with a .927 save percentage. And in the playoffs, Spencer Knight, 1-1, .933 save percentage. What you'll notice is that I felt Drieger was their best goalie during the regular season. Knight, in the couple of games he played, he was fantastic. Bobrovsky's not on the list. And yet, here he is, 32 and over, and he's making $10 million a year, and he's not their top goalie during the regular season or the playoffs, in my eyes, just from what I watched. And so that to me is a major issue for Florida. It is a major issue. So we'll see if that issue changes next year or Bobrovsky bounces back. Last 5 seasons, as here, 37, 14, and 5. They lose round 1 against Tampa, 4-2. The previous season, 35, 26, and 8. In the qualifying round, they lost against the Islanders, 3-1. And then it was just endless disappointment prior to that. 2018, 2019, 36, 32, and 14. I picked them to make the playoffs that year. 2017, 2018, they finished 44, 30, and 8, missed the playoffs. I picked them to make the playoffs that year. 2016, 2017, 35, 36, and 11. I did not pick them to make the playoffs that year. So this year I said, nope, no playoffs, and then they made it. But Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens going forward because, again, Florida hasn't had that sustained success of making it to the playoffs. So getting beyond the first round becomes more difficult. And because not every team's Carolina, not every team will be like, hey, if we make the playoffs, we're out of the first round. Why is it so difficult for everybody? To which Florida and Toronto says, shut up. It just, some teams just can't get over that hump. And so we'll see whether or not Florida can get over it next year. I don't necessarily think they need to go back to the old logo. This, of course, being the Panther with the hockey stick, because it is the most subtle change to a logo that I've seen that's been made that makes a lot of sense. Is him snapping the hockey stick. I actually was quite surprised they never switched over to that logo full time because I thought that looks pretty cool. Maybe they felt it was too close to the San Jose Sharks with the shark bite and the hockey stick. But there, Florida. Next year, how do you think they do? And how do you feel about their best contracts going forward? So again, not a contract that's expiring this year. That's the rule. Huberdeau, $5.9 million for 2 more years after this one. Wow. And Barkov, same number, $5.9 million for another year. They're both going to get raises. Barkov's going to get a big raise. They can negotiate that big raise with him this summer. Whatever number he asks for, he probably deserves. So it's going to be interesting to see how Florida, a team that does like to save some money because they don't generate a ton of money, through attendance, and maybe that changes with some success. With this season they had, do we then see the attendance go up, see the income go up, and then they're not going to worry as much about how much Barkov and Huberdeau are going to make, or how does that work out? And Verhaeghe for 1 more year at $1 million. Wow. Carter Verhaeghe cost them $1 million. For 6 of those, you can get a Louis Eriksson. So, Mackenzie Weegar, $3.25 million for 2 more years. I think Weegar at $3.25 million is a steal as well. So, yes, people will focus on the Bobrovsky contract, and I agree that contract is a little bit high, just a little bit. But the other contracts on this team are pretty good bargain contracts. But Barkov, I think, gets a big raise next time around, and then a year after that, it's Huberdeau's turn. They may very well want the exact same cap hit, same as they have now. We'll see what Florida does. So that's the question. What does Florida do from here? And has Florida figured out a setup now where next year they make the playoffs and they get out of the first round? Can they get out of the first round in 2022? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.